This is the second installment of a two-part video series that explores how a trimmer head, a nose trimmer head, and a shaver head operate. The first video covered the main body and the trimmer head. Therefore, in this video, we are going to be looking at the nose trimmer head and the shaver head. We start with the nose trimmer head. The nose trimmer uses a set of rotating cutting blades that sit inside a plastic or metal guard. The metal guard helps to prevent direct contact with the skin. An explosion of the nose trimmer head reveals its constituent elements, as shown here. Again, let's walk through the process of how it all comes back together. Once again, let's refer to this section as the top half section, and this as the bottom half section. We start our assembly with the tension rod. The tension rod will then be placed on the blade rotor. It will be slid into a groove that holds it in place, preventing it from turning. Next, the inner cutter blades are mounted on the blade rotor from the sides. The cutter blades will then engage the tension rod, compressing it inward until it passes through the slits on the blade rotor. The next part to be mounted is the foil guard. To do this, the tension rod has to be pressed inward until the foil guard is able to go over the cutter blades. When the tension rod is released, it pushes the cutter blades against the walls of the foil guard. We also have the central shaft, which is shaped like a key on one end. The shape of this key corresponds to the shape of the socket at the base of the blade rotor. This enables the blade rotor to be locked into the central shaft. The assembled parts so far will then be placed on supports found on the lower half section. Next, we insert the quick release adapter. We can see that the upper half section also has similar supports. This, when combined with the supports on the lower section, holds the components in their respective positions. The nose trimmer head is attached in the same way the trimmer head is attached. For those who might not have seen the first video, we will go through the process again. Otherwise, you can skip to the next chapter on the timeline. To mount the head, it is turned clockwise to about 45 degrees. The notches on the quick release adapter, now highlighted, form a pattern that corresponds to the pattern formed by the recess found on the body's neck. This way, the neck of the body is able to pass through the quick release adapter until the body flushes with the head. By turning the head in the opposite direction, the notches on the quick release adapter will snap into the recess on the neck. We can observe better how the notches on the adapter move into the recess on the body's neck while the quick release adapter sits in the head. With the nose trimmer head properly attached to the body, we see that the drive cam lies in the socket of the central shaft. A closer look shows how the hexagonal drive cam locks into a hexagonal socket on the central shaft. Meanwhile, the other end of the central shaft, which is shaped like a key, lies in the socket at the base of the blade rotor. When the device is turned on, the drive cam begins to spin. And as it spins, it drives the central shaft attached to it. The central shaft, in turn, drives the blade rotor. We earlier saw how the tiny cutter blades were inserted into the blade mount from the sides, which compressed the tension rod. As a result, the tension rod keeps pushing the blades outwards towards the walls of the foil. This ensures that the blades revolve within the foil while making firm contact with the walls of the foil. We can see that the foil guard is open at this end, with some kind of claw-like teeth. The edges of these teeth are also sharp, enabling them to act as the outer blade. The slit on this open end allows longer hairs to get to the cutting mechanism inside. When the gadget is turned on, we can observe how all of the internal parts function to give the cutting blades their rotary motion. Manufacturers have designed the foil guard to fit into a person's nostril safely without damaging the sensitive tissues inside it. As it goes in, several hair strands will pass through the claw-like teeth. Now, these hair strands will sandwich between the rotating blades and the teeth. As the blades revolve, they push the strands against the teeth on the foil guard, thus cutting the hairs. Let's now take a look at the shaver head. What we have here is a foil shaver. They are electric razors that use oscillating blades covered by a thin layer of metal known as the foil. A quick explosion again reveals its constituent components. The first part that goes in is the quick release adapter. We then have these two compression springs that go into the hollow protrusions on the foil frame release buttons. The buttons, together with the springs, are inserted in the lower half section. We also have the flexible cam follower, which is first mounted through 4 mount holes on the upper half section. The upper half section is then brought to the lower half section. A mount plate is then placed on this side. These 2 screws are then run through. They pass from the mount plate and through the upper half section to be fastened to the protrusions on the lower half section. This holds this portion of the assembly together firmly, with the cam follower in the middle. 2 compression springs are then inserted on the drive member. The carriages have hollow cylindrical protrusions that enable them to slide into the drive member with the compression springs in the middle. Next, the cutter blades are mounted on the carriages, after which the drive member moves into the socket on the flexible cam follower. Next, we have the cutter foils, which are perforated metal screens that cover the blades. To hold the foils in place, these fasteners are secured to the ends of the foils through mount holes. The foils are then rigidly fastened to the foil frame. To mount the foil frame, these foil frame release buttons must be pressed, compressing the springs inside. This enables the foil frame to go in. Once the buttons are released, the springs push the buttons out to their initial positions. As a consequence, the notches on the sides of the foil frame grip the protrusions on the foil frame release buttons. Let's have a better look at it again. This time, we can see how the engaged buttons compress the springs for the foil frame to go in. Once the buttons are released, the buttons are pushed back to lock the foil frame. To attach the shaver head, it relies on the quick release adapter mechanism, just like the other 2 heads before it. The head is turned clockwise at an angle of about 45 degrees for the neck of the body to go in. Then, it is turned back in the opposite direction to lock it in place. Next, we turn on the device, but just before the drive cam begins to spin, it can be seen that the drive cam notch is sandwiched between the groove on the cam follower. The revolving notch deflects the flexible cam follower to the right and then to the left. The elastic properties of the arms on the flexible cam follower enable it to act like a spring, thus leading to a more seamless oscillation. Since the drive member is also attached to the flexible cam follower, it is also driven as well. Let's get another angle of this motion. Meanwhile, the drive member holds the carriage that bears the blades. From this view, we can see how the blades oscillate within the foils. There are also 2 compression springs between the carriages and the drive member. Should the carriages be pushed inwards, these springs ensure that the carriages are pushed back outwards towards the foils. To carry out a shave, the device is brought toward the face. After it is turned on, we can see how all the inner components work to provide the reciprocation motion for the blades. The device is then moved close enough to touch and pressed against the skin. This contact results in the bending of the foils inward, around the shape of the part of the face it is in contact with. The foils also push on the blades, thus engaging the springs underneath the carriages. The springs enable the foil to bend inward while still providing the cutting action required. The hairs that poke through the perforations in the foils are cut with every stroke the blades make over the holes, thus providing the shave. If you want to see more videos like this one, kindly subscribe to the channel, like and share the video. Thank you for watching.